Welcome to this presentation of the 2019 Kansas Assessments Test Security, Ethics, and Administration Training. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and to review the information that will be shared with you in this video. All USD 400 Smoky Valley employees who have a role in providing supervision, proctoring, or administration of the state assessments must complete this training session and sign an agreement to abide by guidelines form. More information about this requirement will be shared at the end of the training. As we move through the slides in this presentation, feel free to pause the webinar if you need to read or review information on your screen. As noted on the screen, this training is designed to assure that local educators are following security and ethics guidelines so that the testing program is valid and reliable. Please listen carefully as we review these procedures in the following slides. Please also note the following acronyms and vocabulary as they will be referenced throughout this presentation. You have received an email from your test coordinator that provides a copy of the Kansas Assessment Examiner's Manual. You are encouraged to download a copy of this manual to your computer for future reference, or to print a hard copy of those sections you need for reference. In particular, sections 3, 4, and 5 of the manual contain important instructions and guidelines for those staff who will directly supervise or proctor students in a testing situation. Please review these items. Contact your building principal if you have questions about the information in this manual. By email, you have also received a copy of the KSDE State Assessment Fact Sheet. You have also received a hard copy of this fact sheet from your principal. Please pause the webinar now and spend a few minutes reading the Acceptable Practices section of the fact sheet and restart the webinar when you are ready to continue. There are 4 highlighted acceptable practices on the screen, and they are there to bring emphasis as these tend to be actions we need to be sure all test monitors complete during and after each testing session. Active supervision of testing sessions is important for several reasons. We want to be sure students are authentically engaged in the tests they are taking, and it allows us to be proactive in recognizing any technical problems that may be impacting a student's test experience. It is important that students know they are to wait until the test proctor looks at the end review screen before finishing their test. It is permissible for the test proctor to remind students to complete all questions on the test. It is not permissible to review test items individually. We'll move on to the Unacceptable Practices section now. Please pause the webinar, read this material, and then continue the video when done. On your screen, you will see 4 highlighted points of emphasis, and it's important that you understand each of these. Never save, store, or share test items. Do not recreate test items on paper or take screenshots or photos of test items on student computers. These specific procedures to follow if you find there is an error or a mistake on a particular test item will be reviewed later in the presentation. Many of the unacceptable practices noted on your fact sheet pertain to the use of test items as instructional or review materials. Please be advised that coaching or cueing behaviors by adults, even ones that we use routinely in daily instructional practice, are not allowed. It is permissible to encourage a student to complete all test questions and, as an example, to respond to a student with phrases like choose the answer you think is best or carefully reread the question and rework the problem. But in general, you need to refrain from providing cues that would be suggestive of a correct answer or to review and edit a response to a test item. We understand this can be a judgment call of where the line is between lowering the frustration level of a student and improperly aiding the student. A good guideline might be able to think, if a KSDE monitor was in the room with me, would I answer this student's question? For some students, it might help to create a better testing experience if they are very familiar with the KITE testing environment. In particular, there are some specific ways the KITE tests are set up on the computer screen to navigate between test questions, to highlight certain information in a reading text, for example, or to use tools such as calculators. We encourage you to spend a bit of time prior to testing and have students explore the KITE application. The KITE interactive demo link on this screen will provide you the information on how to access this practice tool. Let's now take a look at some of the best practices in testing environments such as classrooms or computer labs. Instructional aids such as charts, posters, or other displays may need to be covered or removed from the test setting if the materials give advantage to students during tests. Manipulatives are another area where there is often confusion. The two resources listed on the screen provide the best places to go to confirm what is allowed. In general, students can self-create fact sheets, graphic organizers, memory devices, and etc. for their own use. Instructional materials such as textbooks, dictionaries, and the like are not allowed. The rules for the use of calculators and math manipulatives are particularly specific, so if you're responsible for proctoring a math assessment, please be sure to use the resources shared here. In particular, if you are monitoring a high school math assessment, there are some specific rules regarding the use of calculators. As a reminder, this presentation was also emailed to you as a PowerPoint document, and you can access the links that you see on these screens and get the resources from there. In the days leading up to testing, the building test coordinator, your principal, will provide test proctors with some important information. In particular, you will get a list of student usernames and passwords. Students use these login credentials when they access the KITE client on their computer. A student will use the same username and password for every Kansas assessment that they take this year. The login credential that changes every day is called the daily access code. The student uses this code in conjunction with their username and password to open a test session on the KITE client application tool on their computer. The daily access code changes every day and is different for each content test and grade level. Your building test coordinator will provide you the daily access code each day that you are testing. This is why it is important to communicate with your test coordinator when changes in testing schedules are considered. Without the correct codes, your students will not be able to access the correct tests on the KITE client. As noted on the screen, Section 5 of the Kansas Assessment Examiner's Manual provides more information about beginning and ending tests, as well as the script of instructions that you'll provide to students prior to testing. Due to a variety of factors, it may be necessary to reactivate a student's test session. This may occur because of a service interruption in our internet, which kicks the student out of the KITE client, or perhaps the student has to leave the test unfinished for some reason. In these cases, if the student attempts to log back into KITE within 90 minutes of the original interruption, the student should be able to use the same username, password, and daily access code and re-enter the test where they left off. If, however, it has been longer than 90 minutes, you'll need to contact the building test coordinator, your principal, and request a reactivation. You're going to need to provide some basic information to the coordinator because we have to maintain a log of these kinds of events. And generally, you'll just need to know the name of the student, the grade level, the test you need reactivated, and the reason for reactivating. Sometimes, due to circumstances, it may be necessary to move a student away from a testing situation. Just keep notes on the reason for doing so and contact your building test coordinator. When testing can resume, the session can be reactivated at that time. Let's now discuss the issue of testing accommodations for students. All students taking Kansas assessments have access to a suite of tools as part of the regular testing experience. This includes access to online calculators, highlighting tools, a periodic table, text-to-speech audio, and whole-screen magnification. No paperwork needs to be filed or permissions granted for students to use these tools. Use the link provided on this screen to access a chart that shows the type and purpose of tools available to all students on Kite. Also on this chart, there is a list of accommodations available to students with a 504 plan, an ELL plan, and an IEP or other specialized plan of need. In order for a student to access or use these tools and resources, a team of educators must file a personal needs profile. This form is available from the building test coordinator, and he will work with classroom teachers and special ed staff to make those requests. Carefully review this slide for the types of accommodations that are appropriate in various settings. Professional judgment is often used in these situations to respond to a student's request. As noted before, the guidelines for allowable manipulatives for the math assessment can be tricky, so be sure to review the guidelines provided in the link shown on these slides. This concludes the training session on Kansas Assessment Security, Ethics, and Guidelines. A hard copy of the Agreement to Abide by Guidelines form has been provided to you by your principal. Please fill this form out and return it to your principal no later than February 28th. All educators who have a role in the Kansas Assessment Program must verify training and affirm agreement to follow these principles. A schedule of testing will be created for each grade level at each building. Please consult with your principal to confirm the dates planned for your tests. If you have any questions about the assessment program, please reach out to your building principal. Thank you.